Privacy protection in context-aware web services. On the Internet, nobody knows you are a dog, according to the famous Pat Steiner cartoon in The New Yorker in 1993. Nowadays, privacy is recognized as a fundamental human right by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of the United Nations and is protected by relevant legislation in all the democratic countries. The Directive 95/46/EC defines personal data as any information relating to an identified or identifiable natural person. Furthermore, the Directive 2002/58/EC imposes explicit obligations and sets specific limits on the processing of users' personal data by network and service providers, in order to protect the privacy of the users of communications services and networks. Legal and regulatory requirements for context-aware systems are the following. Lawfulness of the data processing. Purposes for which data are processed. Quality of the data processed, identifiable data. Notification and other authorizations from competent privacy authority. Information to the data subjects. Consent and withdrawal of consent. Exercising rights of the data subject. Data security and confidentiality. Traffic data and location data. Access limitation. Data storage. Dissemination of data to third parties. Transfer of data to third countries. Supervision and sanctions. Lawful interception. The machine is the problem. The solution is in the machine, according to Poulet. Context-aware systems and services should be built in order to meet certain technical challenges. Technical challenges are the need for access control, privacy-aware information flows, the importance of semantics, complementary actions, the role of the users, the role of the authorities, adequacy of security protection means. E-wallet includes a number of privacy rules specified by the user regarding access control properties for different conditions and data abstraction. Also, it contains an editor that enables users to create, edit and delete their privacy preferences expressed as rules in OWL format. The provision of the automation of the privacy policies enforcement has been the focus of several approaches, including the ones proposed by IBM, Oasis and Hewlett-Packard. The basis for the privacy-aware access control models has been the Platform for Privacy Preferences, P3P, and its user-side complement called AP3P Preference Exchange Language. Privacy context, comprised of two different sources, the privacy preferences that should be integrated to the user contextual profile, and a source of privacy policies that represent fair information practices stemming from the legislation. In context-aware WS, purpose is essentially represented by the semantic identity of the service contextual data, services, roles. Privacy laws are frequently complemented by explicit obligations for registering and retaining additional data beyond the ones needed for operational purposes, in order for other provisions to be enforced, for example, counter-terrorist laws, thus creating a regulatory jungle. The lack of knowledge of the legislation constitutes the main reason for explaining the disrespect of the data protection law by the European organization's adaptation to the new requirements of the data protection is very time-consuming. The component denoted as privacy enforcer is the main mediator between the service requester and the service providers, assigned with the task of injecting privacy-aware behavior in the service provision procedure, which may also include interactions between different service providers. Instead of having a direct communication link between the context awareness mechanism, the user and the service providers, the privacy enforcer comes among them, in order to verify that all ends respect the technical requirements introduced by the legislation and the preferences specified by the user. The mechanism responsible for injecting context awareness into the WS behavior is independent from the privacy-related entities. Context awareness mechanism acts as a black box that may communicate with the WS end, the context properties or both. From the end-user point of view, the functionality of the privacy enforcer and the context awareness mechanism is seamlessly integrated with the WS provision, leaving the user unaware of the details of the procedures that take place prior to the service delivery. The presented configuration scheme can be combined with various context adaptation techniques. The context data acquisition is performed in the main service code, through the WS itself or through external services that communicate directly with the initial service. The latter case leaves the main service logic intact and applies a number of external mechanisms that adapt the WS to the contextual situation. The framework architecture serves the provision of context-aware WS in a privacy preservation fashion. The advantage of mechanisms that rely on message interception is that they remain totally independent of the main service logic. The communication among the main elements participating in the architecture is illustrated in figure. The sphere of electronic services provision has been expanded. The issue of privacy protection is vital in context-aware services, and the current analysis can serve as a useful reference for the potential developer and architect in the field. Thank you for listening.